Hey, Christy Mattoon here again. Thank you so much for being here as always. I posted a video that was called Let It Go Part 1, and here's Let It Go Part 2. So I wanted to show this, I wanted to give this to you because it's just good information. If it helps you, it'll probably help somebody else. And I always say, please share these videos if that's so. And I greatly appreciate you for that. Make a comment below about whatever you're thinking, because I always like to respond to those comments and questions in whatever way that I can. I do allow Creator to speak through me. I allow Spirit to speak through me. So sometimes those messages come out in these videos, and people have caught that sometimes, and it's interesting. So ask your questions. If I can help in any way, I'll ask and let it move however it moves through. So Let It Go Part 2 is about making a correction. And I spoke to this a little bit in the last video in Part 1. Make a correction. What does that mean? It means you do something inside of yourself to correct the part of you that was part of the situation. Now, people always think this means you have to keep the person in your life or the thing or the situation, right? It has to be in front of you, right? To be able to correct it. And that's not necessarily so. If we are creating our worlds from that internal part of us by our feeling, our level of feeling, you could merely create a new level of feeling and start to correct, right? Make a correction to the system, start to correct that issue. Just by a new level of feeling, a new vibration, and then applied thought to it. Does that make sense? So let's say I have something going on, and the video that sparked this was a rant, right? So video 1 was really the rant. Video 2 was let it go. Video 3 is make a correction. So if I sit inside the issue that I was ranting about, inside this space, and there's a few different spaces of that going on in my world, if I pick one of those and I sit in it, and I think about it, and I allow the feeling into my system, and then I change the level of vibration, the level of feeling to one of love or, joy, gratitude. Gratitude is one of the easiest ones for most people to get to. We tend to understand gratitude because it's been talked about for so many decades about having a practice of gratitude. So people tend to understand it and can find a feeling to it quicker than other things, right? Love tends to be pretty hard for most people because the heart is so blocked off with for most humans. It's a tough sell to say, oh, just go feel love. Try gratitude, right? Try something that's a little bit easier that you can get to. And once you start to feel it, right, use a thought form to get to gratitude. What helps you feel gratitude, bring it into your heart space and keep feeling it, right? This brings you into heart coherence. It's easy. It's as easy as that, okay? It's as easy as that. Making the correction in the system means that you have to bring into balance it's an emotional imbalance, right? And it's created ripples throughout the world that's around you. And the people who are co-creating in your world around you have their own little thing going on. I can only change mine. The signal that I send out will start to permeate the airwaves around me. It'll start to permeate things around me. And then all of a sudden you start to see them change. You start to see them soften. You start to see the situation alter, right? And this is like one of the great mystery teachings. How do you change the world around you? It's in vibration form first. We manifest it through our senses and create the world around us. And then we start agitating it and playing with it and creating more of whatever it is we think we're seeing. And it becomes this huge, impossible, arduous thing that you heard me ranting about the other day, right? So I make a correction to my system. I look at the issue. I come into a space and just a different level of vibration. And I sit in that vibration, not necessarily over the situation, right? I'm not in gratitude over the situation. I'm just feeling a high vibration of gratitude and thinking about that issue. Gratitude will permeate it, right? Love will permeate it. Joy will permeate it. Peace will permeate it. And I sit there in that feeling and let it alter and start to rectify itself. And what will happen usually is things calm down, everybody calms down, and I step out of my place of gratitude or peace for whatever reason, right? We're all human. And then all of a sudden it's agitated again. The thing just like blows up in my face. And I'm like, interesting. So my goal is always the same. The correction I'm trying to make permanent. I want to stay in a permanent place of peace. I want to stay in a permanent place inside my heart. I don't want to walk out of that. In fact, inside the heart, when you get into that tiny space of the heart, right? I don't know, I think Dispenza calls it the blackness. And I've heard, ancient texts use the idea of the tiny heart, or the tiny space in the heart. There's all different kinds of understandings about it. When you get into that place, it's where your spirit is. It's where that part of you resides. It is eternal, right? And then you have to learn how to stay there, because we were not taught that you could do that. We were not taught or given that information. That would be considered a correction to the system also. What is it that you're trying to correct? Is it just by vibration form? Is it by trying to get into that new part of you? And then staying in that state, staying in that place, staying in that peace, staying in that joy, staying in that heart, staying in your spirit, becoming that different level, that different version of you. Does that make sense? So you can think of making a correction, right? If I'm trying to let something go, but I do think that's a huge oxymoron, because we are co-creators and you can't really let go what you're a part of, which is consciousness. We are all a part of this greater consciousness, and you can't let that go. You're a part of it. When you come to that realization, you come to understand that, and you go, okay, I'm going to stick my face into it and see what of it I can bring a level of gratitude to, bring a level of peace to, bring a level of joy to. And it's just by feeling itself. I'm not necessarily doing anything with the situation. I'm just staying in peace and looking at it. And then see what happens to you. See what happens for you. See what happens around you, right? Level of correction. If I'm here and I make a correction, Kabbalah teaches it like it's a stair step, right? So you create this new stair, you make a correction, and now instead of standing down here, you're standing up here. And it's a different scope of view. I can see things differently because now I've made this correction to my system, and instead of being down here on this platform, I'm up here on this one. And now it looks different, right? The angle of trajectory from what I can see is different. And then I do that again. I make another correction, and now I'm up here and I'm looking out over it. And it's the same idea. All of a sudden I can see things differently, and you keep doing that and keep doing that. And then you start recognizing your peace more, and you're able to stay in your heart more. That's true reprogramming of the system on the deepest level, way deeper than just saying, I'm just going to let it go and walk away from it. I'm not reprogramming if I'm doing that. I'm setting it aside for a later date because it will come back. You didn't alter the energy to it, right? And this is just how I'm seeing this. So I want you to hear what I'm seeing. Anyway, leave a comment, post a note below about what you're thinking. Does it make sense? The correction to the system. I've talked about this idea before, and it's not the idea of diving into the darkness and like really fighting and struggling with it. If you are light and you bring yourself into a dark situation and stay light, what happens to the darkness? It has to dispel because the light dispels the darkness. Does it make sense? So we like to think of this dark night of the soul idea and just, I don't know, jumping into it and fighting with it and wrestling with it until you can come into some kind of understanding of it. If you take peace into the dark night of the soul, you're going to understand it way quicker because it gives you a different platform to see it from. If I take gratitude into the dark night of the soul, just by vibration form itself, not necessarily gratitude that I have to go do this or gratitude that I have to be here, gratitude from a heart-centered space, it's an attribute of your spirit, and that's a whole nother conversation, but it's an attribute of your spirit that just pours out in vibration form, and then all of a sudden I can see my dark night of the soul differently, and I don't have to spend years or months or whatever fighting with it. All of a sudden I can just be in that level of peace and look at it and say, okay, there it is. That's what that is. Does it make sense? Let it go changes when you understand that part of it. The idea of let it go, wherever, right, let it go comes from for you. Anyway, I hope this blesses you. I hope you have a great day, a great week. We are in September 2020, which is interesting and strange in my head. All of the stuff that has gone on and all of the things that are going to be going on. I want to bless you to find your peace, and I want to bless you to find your gratitude from your spirit version of you, not from the worldly version of you. Thank you for being here.